This week, the city of Cornwall, as well as the counties that surround us, lost a very influential politician in Leslie O'Shaughnessy. Today, I'm joined by Councillor Claude McIntosh and former MPP Jim McDonell, who also served with Leslie in many capacities within the county politics. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start off, Claude, in regards to Leslie with the city council here and your understanding of Leslie O'Shaughnessy.
Leslie, I became a councillor in 2014, and that was the year he pulled a major upset, defeating Bob Kilger. I told him during the election, you don't have a chance with us, against this guy. And he managed to pull it off, and he ran a campaign. He stuck to accountability and transparency, and it really worked. And anyway, we didn't have a great relationship when he was a councillor before he ran for mayor. But I'll tell you one thing: during my term, first year term, we got along great. I almost felt I became his go-to guy. I covered politics a long time, but being on the outside and being on the inside are two different things, and he really gave me a lot of good advice, and some of it I took, and some of it I didn't.
And Claude, we'll talk a little more about the city of Cornwall as well, and former MPP Jim McDonell. Let's talk a little bit about the county politician in the name of Leslie O'Shaughnessy.
Well, my first term back in Charlottenburgh Township, Les was the mayor. Great mayor again. As far as the council go, probably got along better than any council I sat on. He certainly was. Leslie was no part-time politician. He put 100% into the job. Sometimes to his own. Caused some issues at home, I'm sure, with his employment. But he was there. He would certainly listen to people, listen to council. He liked to have 100% vote on every motion. Sometimes was not always possible. But a good friend, and certainly we'll miss him. I think I look back in the counties in South Glengarry. People with natural gas should. Les was really spearheaded that. I remember at the time on council he was talking about purchasing Enbridge. A franchise agreement came up, and all of a sudden, his complaint was you're not serving any of the territory. And Williamstown, Lancaster, North Lancaster, all of a sudden got natural gas. And the day we signed the contract, that's the last thing they expanded on, But I think there was a lot of, strategically, he said, well, we can borrow the money, we can take this over. And I don't think the gas company at the time wanted a precedent set. And things that they refused to do for years, all of a sudden we're done in a few months.
Claude, you had mentioned before we came on air today that one thing about Leslie wasn't a guy who walked in a room and demanded attention.
No, he was a real grassroots politician. Nothing flashy, but boy, I haven't been at this long on my third term, but never seen anybody that knew the municipal act better than Leslie. He knew line by line, and he was a real good negotiator. I remember at AMO conference sitting down with Vic Fidelli, who was the finance minister at the time. And I was impressed with the way Leslie went point to point to point. And so I think Fidelli was impressed with it. He didn't attack him or anything, but just went through it point by point, and he knew his stuff. And that's the way it was. Jim, you talk about the gas deal. Cornwall Electric sold, okay? City sells Cornwall Electric. Yeah. And Leslie went, wait a minute, he was with Charlottenburgh at the time, wait a minute here, I think you guys owe us some money. And worked out, I don't know how the nuts and bolts went, but being they were purchasing electricity, they were part of the deal, they ended up with like $240,000, whatever it was. And in the South Stormont said, wait a minute, us too. So Leslie really, that's the kind of guy he was. He knew his stuff, and he studied something, and when he brought it to the table, he knew where he was going with it. And I look back, his defeat to Bernadette, I didn't think it was a fair shake for him. He was a good mayor. I couldn't think of anything you'd attack him on, but Bernadette was a rock star. And, he told me after the election, he called me up and he said, I knew I would. Early in the campaign, I knew I was going down. And he was gracious about it. He was no bitterness about losing. In fact, he was saying, I got more time now for myself, and I'll throw the cell phone away. He was underappreciated, I thought, by the voters in that election. Finished third, it wasn't, he was better than that.
When we talk about the city politics, Jim also, he had quite the resume within the county politics. I mean, not many people actually held the roles that he did in 2 different municipalities.
Well, I think, as Claude mentioned, he was a great negotiator, and I saw that in a few of our union contracts and strategy, and warden of the counties. He ran provincially as well. He certainly loved his politics, very much included everybody on council. There was no, you knew where Les was coming from. Low key, though, as you said.
Interesting when you talk about the great negotiator he was. I was on the committee with Leslie, Norm Levac, who were CEO at the time, and Bernadette Clement, negotiating for the Portlands. And we were running up, really, Public Works was playing a real tough game with us. And finally Leslie said, we'll have a telephone conference, and he says to Norm, he says, you play the softy, I play the hard guy. And it was amazing now that we were dealing with one of their top deputy ministers, and she paused at one point and went, okay, you guys get the deal.
When we look back at Leslie O'Shaughnessy from each of you, what would you consider a legacy or something that stuck to you about Leslie O'Shaughnessy that people should remember?
Just the fact he was worked hard, never embarrassed the city, wasn't flashy, but got things done. He showed up all the time. The development charges, he brought in development charges, which I opposed, and he gave me heck for that. And I look back now, and I after it was all over, I told him, I says, you were right, I was wrong. I says, we needed the development charges, which has been a real cash cow for the city, and he's the one that pushed that through, and it's made hundreds of thousands of dollars for the city.
Jim?
I think it's negotiating skills, and unfortunately, the public wouldn't see those, but they see the results. And I talked about the natural gas, and again, this good cop, bad cop is something he used there, and it worked. But he was in the public all the time. A lot of people maybe wouldn't notice him, as Claude would say, but he was their mayor, and he would make sure he was at everything. He was well read. He would go up against anybody and be able to hold his own. And whether it be in the provincial government or federal government, I think people underestimated him for the results he got.
Is it fair to say, in conclusion with Leslie O'Shaughnessy, that he was a people's mayor?
Yeah. Oh, definitely,
yeah.
Definitely. I'm saying grassroots all the way. He developed great relationships with Akwesasne. He enhanced them, the relationship we had. No, he was just saying he wasn't a flashy guy. He wasn't one of those polished politicians, as Jim probably knows many of them when he was in Queen's Park. He got things done. He really did.
And final thoughts from the both of you, Jim, in regards to the warden, the council member, the mayor. Yeah. Final thoughts?
Well, he was a great mentor, a great friend. Certainly shocked when I heard the news. I just, I think that, the community is better, for Les's contribution. And, many people, didn't see it, but that wasn't the way he did things. He didn't fight in public. He would work with people, and he would get the job done.
Councillor?
I saw Leslie about 9 months ago at a grocery store, and we had a long chat, and his parting words were, give me a call if you need any help.
So I want to thank our former MPP, Jim McDonell, coming in and talking about Leslie O'Shaughnessy, as well as Councillor Claude McIntosh, talking about Leslie O'Shaughnessy. To our community, we've lost a great individual this week, and you can see 2 fine gentlemen talking about him today in regards to his professionalism. And I guess in conclusion, we could say he was the people's mayor. Yeah. So to the O'Shaughnessy family, on behalf of the citizens of Cornwall and SDNG, our sympathy, and Leslie will be remembered.